My fiancée left me for my brother on our wedding day, with my parents' full support. Now, she sought help against her husband's controlling behavior. I, 35 million, had the most terrible day of my life 2 years ago. An hour prior to our wedding, my fiancée, Alexandra, 32 degrees Fahrenheit, called to inform me that she was unable to proceed. The actual bombshell? Behind my back, she had been seeing my brother Nathan, 40 million, and our parents had even supported their relationship. Have you ever watched a movie where everything seems to be going well until it all goes wrong? My life was like that. I was making good money as a senior software developer at a rapidly expanding computer business, had recently purchased a home in a desirable Boston suburb, and was getting married to the woman I believed to be my true love. Over the course of 5 years, Alex and I had planned our future, built a life together, and I thought we were in agreement on everything. Alex was a marketing executive representing her company when I first met her at a tech convention. She was intelligent, driven, and had a knack of making every space she entered seem brighter. Our mutual passion for independent video games and esoteric science fiction films made us click right away. We conversed for 6 hours on our first date, until the restaurant staff essentially had to eject us. In retrospect, I can see all the red flags I ignored because I was so enamored with her. Her treatment of service staff ought to have been the first warning sign. On the surface, she was always courteous, but her tone was tinged with contempt. Then there were the smaller lies, which were initially little ones, such as claiming to be out with friends when she was actually working late. She had an amazing capacity to make everything about her needs, never apologized when she damaged my feelings, and persisted on getting what she wanted. However, I dismissed it all by reminding myself that relationships necessitate compromise and that no one is flawless. My family's dynamics ought to have been an additional red flag. I work as an IT professional and I'm doing okay, nothing great. In contrast, my brother Nathan is the perfect child who is incapable of doing anything wrong. He is a successful businessman who, after graduating from college, founded his own IT company, which by his early 30s had grown to be worth millions of dollars. Why can't you be more like Nathan? Or, Nathan would have done it this way, were common refrains when I was growing up. My parents, who are both in their 60s, never attempted to conceal their partiality. I recall a Christmas when I was 15 years old. My parents' old coffee machine was breaking, so I spent the entire year saving money to get them a really excellent one. After arriving late for Christmas dinner, Nathan gave them an envelope and declared that he had purchased a cruise for them. They spent the remainder of the evening savoring cruise brochures while my meticulously wrapped coffee machine sat forgotten beneath the tree. That was only one of many examples. Every move I made was questioned because it wasn't what Nathan would have done, and every accomplishment I made was evaluated against his success. I should have seen Alex's eyes light up when Nathan told her about his business endeavors when I first introduced her to my family. I should have seen how she progressively began to get closer to him during family get-togethers and how their discussions seemed to become more in-depth and personal. However, I was too preoccupied with organizing the wedding and envisioning our future together to notice it. Like all previous important days, the wedding day began as usual. I felt both anxious and eager. Alex had fallen in love with the gorgeous vineyard location we had selected, which was outside the city and offered a breathtaking view of the mountains. The flowers, the music, and the meticulously prepared meal that had taken months to perfect were all ready. My phone rang that morning while I was standing in my hotel room, fiddling with my tie for the 100th time. Alex informed me she couldn't marry me in a chilly, almost clinical voice. Then the actual bombshell arrived. Nathan was her genuine love. She sounded no apologies. She merely stated that she needed to follow her intuition. As she described how she and Nathan had been dating for months, I stood there with my hands shaking so much that I could not hold the phone. She hoped that one day I would comprehend that they had attempted, but were unable, to fight their emotions. The worst part is that I found out my folks already knew when I arrived at the location to handle the repercussions. That morning, Nathan had informed them. They were too busy attempting to manage the situation, to spare me disgrace to warn me. With the bold suggestion that perhaps it was best, my mother Catherine, 62 degrees Fahrenheit, said, "You wouldn't want to marry someone who doesn't love you." My father simply nodded, more concerned with the opinions of their golf club acquaintances than with his son's struggles. The hours that followed were a haze of cancelled merchants, perplexed patrons, and pitying glances. While I sat in a back room, still wearing my wedding suit, trying to comprehend how my entire life had fallen apart in one morning, my best man attempted to take care of the practical details. My parents informed me that there had been an unfortunate situation, and the wedding had been cancelled after some guests had already come, all dressed to the nines. I didn't realize the full scope of their betrayal until months later. I learned that my parents had actively pushed Alex to leave me for Nathan through a mutual acquaintance. They had assured her that she would have a better life with Nathan and that she was too good for me, promising to provide for her financially if she decided to choose him over me. For months, they had been planning this behind my back while grinning at me and assisting with the wedding preparations. The buddy shared with me text conversations in which my mother set up accidental meetings between Nathan and Alex, giving them chances to hang out. Alex had been informed by my mother that Nathan had always harbored feelings for her and that they would be a better fit. Knowing how significant Alex's career goals were, my parents even offered to help her launch her own marketing consultancy if she decided to go with Nathan. I walked away from everything that day. I moved to a distant state, quit my job, and stopped communicating with my family. I updated my email, my phone number, everything. I couldn't bear to live in the house I had purchased with all the memories, so I let the bank foreclose on it. The awkward interactions with mutual acquaintances who were at a loss for words and the pitying glances from coworkers who had been invited to the wedding were too much for me to bear. My therapist, whom I began seeing to cope with the trauma of it all, was the only one I continued to communicate with. She assisted me in realizing that what I had gone through was a significant betrayal by everyone who was meant to love and care for me, not just a failed relationship. We unraveled how my parents' partiality had influenced my relationships and sense of self as we worked through the years of family dynamics that had brought us to this place. Although they haven't been easy, the last 2 years have been essential. I rented a modest apartment in a peaceful area, got a new job at another computer business in Denver, and began gradually re-establishing my life. Through a local hiking group, I gained new friends who welcomed me for who I am now and didn't know anything about my background. I began meditation, worked on my mental health, and discovered how to be content on my own. I even hesitantly resumed dating. Just casual dinners and coffee meetings, nothing serious. Every date made it clearer to me that Alex's behavior and the toxic relationships in my family were more important than my personal value. I discovered how to follow my gut and recognize warning signs in others rather than justifying them. I poured myself into new tasks at work, which led to a promotion and the appreciation of my coworkers. For the first time in my life, Nathan's accomplishments were not being used to gauge my own. I could just produce my best job and be myself, and that would be plenty. My newfound acquaintances appreciated me for who I am, not for what they believed I ought to be. I believed that chapter of my life was finally over. I had a good group of friends, was doing well at work, and was even considering purchasing a home once more. Without the looming specter of my family's expectations, I had established a new life for myself, one that was based on my own terms. Then Alex arrived at my door last week. First update. Last week, I nearly didn't recognize Alex when I opened my door and saw her standing there. I had lost the slick, self-assured marketing executive I had known. Someone who appeared to have not slept well in weeks took her place. Her once flawless makeup was unable to cover up the heavy circles under her eyes, and her fancy attire had been swapped out for a simple sweater and trousers. When I allowed her in, she was trembling, not from the chilly Denver night, but from what I soon discovered to be ongoing anxiety. She told me everything while we sat in my living room, which is where I've been reconstructing my life for the past 2 years. As my parents had predicted, her marriage to Nathan had begun happily ever after. He lavished her with costly presents, helped her launch her own marketing firm, and purchased her a home in Boston's most affluent neighborhood. However, the dream soon became a nightmare. It turns out that underneath his endearing facade, Nathan is precisely who I always believed him to be. Everyone's favorite wealthy, charismatic businessman is a skilled manipulator. Alex talked about how he gradually took over every part of her life behind closed doors. It started out with suggestions on her business choices. Demands concerning who she could collaborate with followed. He eventually took a seat on the board of her business and was given the last word on all contracts. She described the gaslighting to me, including how he would move items around their home and claim she was responsible, how he would contradict their conversations from a few hours prior, and how he would tell their acquaintances she was losing her mind anytime she attempted to confront him. The worst thing? Everything was made possible by our parents, particularly our mother Catherine. Alex wiped away her tears and remarked, "Your mom tells me I'm lucky to have Nathan and that I need to try harder to make him happy." "That's just how successful men protect their interests," she responded when I informed her about his threat to steal everything if I left. Hearing about their son, my nephew, who is now entangled in all of this, was more heartbreaking than Alex's tragedy. Alex claims that even though he is only 18 months old, Nathan is already acting in a domineering manner toward him. Nathan has very stringent restrictions regarding everything, including the baby's playthings, colors, and when he can sleep. If the infant cries during his crucial calls, he becomes irate and accuses Alex of not managing him properly. She started crying when I brought up the subject of a potential divorce. Nathan has stated unequivocally that he will ruin her if she leaves. He has the resources, the contacts, and, above all, the backing of our parents. He has vowed to deny her custody of their son, force her to pay for her legal bills, and make sure she never again works in marketing. She came to me for that reason. To testify in court, she needs someone who is aware of the reality about our family, someone who can discuss Nathan's actual character, the pattern of deception, and the enabling actions of our parents. She believes that my evidence could support her cause, particularly with relation to custody. No, I replied. I didn't argue or yell. I simply informed her that I couldn't assist. I'll probably never forget the expression on her face. The difficulty is that I've learned in therapy for the past 2 years that I'm not in charge of solving other people's problems. I put a lot of effort into setting limits and removing my family's poisonous influence from my life. My phone was overflowing with texts the following day. News of Alex's visit had somehow spread. Suddenly, I had a lot to say from people I had not spoken to since the wedding fiasco. They referred to me as cowardly, selfish, and uncaring. A particularly nasty note about how I was proving my family right, that I was too weak and self-centered to step up when it mattered, was emailed to me by Alex's former maid of honor. The level of hypocrisy is astounding. 2 years ago, none of these folks defended me. When I was the one in pain, none of them gave assistance or pointed out the manipulation by my family. They now ask me to put my painstakingly reconstructed life and mental health at danger in order to support the woman who deceived me. One message struck especially hard. Your nephew, an innocent child, is involved, a mutual friend wrote. Alex doesn't deserve to suffer for everything he did to you. And that's the reason I can't sleep at night. That young guy is on my mind all the time. Being born into this chaos was not anything he requested. None of this was his choice. Alex is growing up in a home that might leave him permanently scarred if what he says is accurate, which I think is based on my experience with Nathan. I understand what it's like to be raised in Nathan's shadow. Will things go worse for his son? However, becoming involved would require me to reintegrate with my family. It would entail dealing with Nathan once more, enduring the manipulation of our parents, and possibly being the object of my brother's retaliation. I might lose everything I've worked so hard to build over the last 2 years. I am therefore at a crossroads. Do I uphold the limits I've worked so hard to create, putting my stability and mental health first? Or should I put everything on the line to save a defenseless child from the same toxic family dynamics that harmed me? To be honest, I have no idea what to do. My therapist advises me to carefully consider what I can contribute in a practical way without endangering my own health. However, every time I attempt to reason with it, I see the image of that young boy. I need your opinion, Reddit. Am I being self-centered by not offering assistance? Or should I defend the tranquility I've at last discovered? What exactly would it look like to assist my nephew without getting sucked into the family conflict again? Second update. A week has passed since my last report, and things have become worse in unexpected ways. My family seems desperate to pull me back into their insanity, even though I hoped that ignoring everything would make it go away. Nathan sent me an email yesterday morning. My stomach dropped when I saw his name in my email. It was a brief but menacing message. I've heard that our ex-fiancée came to you in tears. If you know what's best for you, stay out of family affairs. It's been 2 years since you were involved, don't change anything. For a long time, I stared at those words, feeling a mixture of sorrow and, shockingly, fury. The ostensibly wealthy and successful brother is threatening his own sibling because he fears losing power. If it weren't so depressing, the irony would be funny. However, Nathan wasn't the only one who chose to end the 2-year silence. I was at work when our mother, Catherine, called. Some part of me still freezes when I see Mom on my caller ID, even if I should have ignored it. The same tone Mother used to try to control me as a child, her voice sounded sickly sweet. Without even saying hello, she began. Sweetheart, I know Alex came to see you. You must realize that although she is going through a tough moment, it does not imply that she is thinking rationally. Nathan is making every effort to be a decent father and spouse. She changed her strategy when I didn't answer. Your brother's company is currently at a pivotal moment. Everything he's built might be destroyed by this divorce foolishness. He deserves better from his own brother, don't you think? I was able to find my voice at last. As if I were entitled to better treatment from my own family. There was an overwhelming quiet on the other end. The guilt trip followed. What's best for both of our guys has always been our goal. Families must keep together even though parents make errors. At this moment, Nathan needs you to be the bigger person. I ended the call. My phone began to vibrate with texts from members of my extended family a few minutes later. Catherine had apparently rallied the whole family. After the wedding fiasco, my aunts, uncles and cousins, people who hadn't bothered to check on me, became quite worried about family unity. A cousin wrote, "Neither of your parents is growing any younger. Do you want them to worry about raising their grandchild in a dysfunctional household for the rest of their lives?" Another message was sent. "True men don't harbor resentment. Be the larger person." My father's sister sent me the most vexing message. "Although your brother erred, he granted Alex all of her wishes. You're supporting her conduct, and she's just being ungrateful. It's amazing how they've created this story in which I'm the bad guy for not supporting their idealized family image. They will disregard any proof of Nathan's abusive behavior because they are so committed to his image as the successful son." Then, something that truly shocked me occurred tonight. Nathan was contacted by a former coworker who still works with him. He claimed to have seen several unsettling things happen at work, including Nathan hurling explosive outbursts at staff members, threatening them covertly, and falsifying financial records. He claims that a number of workers have left because of the poisonous workplace, but Nathan's attorneys have them bound by non-disclosure agreements. According to this coworker, if I assisted Alex, perhaps others might be more inclined to speak up about Nathan's actions. He did, however, caution me that Nathan had been asking me questions about my new life in Denver, such as my address and place of employment. The danger is obvious. Nathan will target my new life if I assist Alex. He has the means to seriously challenge me on a personal and professional level. And, as always, our parents would be there for him. I've put forth too much effort to create this tranquil life. My therapist says I've made amazing strides in establishing healthy boundaries, I have true friends who embrace me for who I am, and my career is going great. It scares me to think of losing all that. However, my colleagues' remarks, about further possible witnesses, continue to cross my mind. This is about more than just Alex and my nephew, if what he says is accurate. Dozens of people might be harmed by Nathan's misuse of authority. I've been recording everything, even the intimidating email, the deceptive phone call, and the flying monkey attacks from family members. Although she tells me that I'm not required to burn myself alive to keep others warm, my therapist says this might be significant. Not only should I assist Alex, but I also have a moral duty to call out Nathan's actions before he causes more harm. But am I prepared for the impending storm? I need your advice, Reddit. How can you oppose someone who has all the resources, family support, and power on their side? And is it worth putting everything I've rebuilt at risk in order to act morally? Third update. I struggled with what to do for several restless nights after my last update. Though not in the manner anyone had anticipated, the matter has settled itself. I want to tell you everything that transpired and the reasons behind my decisions. I must first clarify a crucial point. I had a breakthrough session with my therapist following Catherine's deceptive call and Nathan's threatening email. We talked about how my family has always followed the same pattern. Incite a problem, put pressure on me to resolve it, and then utilize my assistance to keep their poisonous system in place. She made it clear to me that getting directly involved would only make this cycle worse. But she also made a very important point. There are ways to help that don't involve me re-engaging with my family's manipulation or sacrificing my mental health. That's when I decided what to do. I sent Child Protective Services a thorough anonymous report. I didn't make this choice lightly. I spent 3 days compiling all of the information I had, including screenshots of the family's nasty texts, emails, text messages, and Nathan's threatening letter. I incorporated all of Alex's information regarding Nathan's domineering actions toward their son. I described how our family has a history of condoning abuse and hiding issues in order to keep up appearances. The report covered more ground than merely the current state of affairs. I gave background information on Nathan's manipulative tendencies and how our parents have traditionally condoned his actions. I gave specific examples, such as how they concealed his college drunk driving episode, how they settled a former employee's harassment lawsuit, and how they have continuously exploited their resources and connections to shield him from repercussions. Additionally, I sent proof of possible financial irregularities that my former coworker had brought up. I thought this gave a more complete picture of Nathan's personality and the depth of his manipulation, even though it might not have a direct bearing on the CPS investigation. Waiting was the most difficult part. Since I was reporting anonymously, I knew I wouldn't receive updates on the status of CPS investigations, which take time. However, I had at least taken a step that would benefit my nephew while still respecting my personal boundaries. Then things began to move more quickly than I had anticipated. Nathan sent me a flurry of angry messages 3 days after I submitted the report. His emails become more and more erratic. "You think you can hide behind anonymity? I know it was you. You've just made the biggest mistake of your life. I'll make sure you never work in tech again. You think you're safe in Denver? Watch your back. You're dead to this family. Remember that. You chose this. Catherine had a different but no less informative reaction. I'm still troubled by the voicemail she left. How could you do this to your own family? We gave you everything, and this is how you repay us? Nathan is devastated. They're investigating him like a common criminal. His reputation could be ruined. I hope you're happy with yourself. What's interesting? None of the accusations were refuted by any of them. They were upset with me because I dared to reveal the truth, not because I made unfounded accusations. After mostly remaining mute during this ordeal, my father suddenly revealed his actual nature. In a letter, he threatened to remove me from his will if I didn't fix this situation immediately. His lawyer wrote the letter. I recognized the hypocrisy of threatening to disown someone who had already left the family. Then Alex sent a surprise message. Hers was shorter than the others and had a distinct tone. I know it was you. Thank you. I'm sorry for everything. I was more affected by those 9 words than by all of Nathan's threats put together. They were the first sincere admission of guilt I had ever gotten from anyone connected to this catastrophe. I learned through rumors that Alex had the leverage she required because of CPS's participation. Nathan's threats of assuming complete custody were less significant because an inquiry was still underway. While the inquiry is ongoing, she was able to obtain emergency temporary custody of their kid. The response from the family has been explosive. The complete force of flying monkeys has been unleashed. My inbox is overflowing with messages from distant cousins I haven't spoken to in years, accusing me of betraying my own blood and ruining the family. On social media, former family friends are expressing their sadness at the way jealousy splits families apart in ambiguous, passive-aggressive condolence posts. The problem is that I'm not as affected by their responses as I used to be. I've never had this level of clarity before, thanks to 2 years of treatment and self-work. Their manipulating techniques are evident to me. Every threat, guilt trip, and effort to get me to reconsider my choice only serves to prove that I chose the right one. My family is upset because I refuse to fulfill my designated part in their dysfunction, not because I have harmed them, my therapist pointed out. I violated the pattern they have been using for decades by opting to safeguard my nephew through legitimate procedures instead of taking part in their cover-up. The fallout has been dramatic but illuminating. I've had to react to the circumstance by taking a number of measures. To make sure they were aware of any threats, I first alerted the security people at my employer about the probable harassment. In order to safeguard myself against any possible reprisals, I also started working with a lawyer. I've had to keep my social media presence totally secret and bolster my personal security measures because of the situation. I didn't want to perform these actions, but they were essential for my security and comfort. But I've also received unanticipated help. A number of cousins who had previously remained silent have privately expressed their pride in me for confronting the family. I've received calls from 2 of Nathan's former workers who want to provide statements in favor of Alex. After hearing the whole story, even some old friends who had previously condemned my choice have changed their minds. Above all, I am comfortable with my choice. Yes, there may be repercussions. Nathan may attempt to undermine my career. The family may actually carry out their threats. However, I'm not basing my decisions on my fear of their reactions for the first time in my life. You're missing the point. Whoever messaged me and said that I'm taking the coward's way out by reporting anonymously rather than going up to Nathan personally. This has nothing to do with conflict or retaliation. It was about figuring out how to support them without putting my own mental health at risk or being entangled in their poisonous relationship again. I have no idea what will occur next. Custody disputes can last many months or even years, and CPS investigations can take many different paths. However, I am aware that I upheld my personal boundaries while doing everything I could to protect an innocent youngster. I discovered a technique to assist without having to burn myself alive to keep others warm. Thank you to everyone who has been reading this narrative and giving guidance. I learned from your encouragement that sometimes doing the right thing doesn't mean being the most dramatic or combative. Sometimes it comes down to figuring out how to protect yourself while yet bringing about change. Keep in mind that you don't have to choose between defending yourself and assisting others if you find yourself in a similar circumstance. Even if it isn't immediately apparent, there is frequently a middle ground. Furthermore, just because you were born into poisonous family systems doesn't mean you have to keep them up. Let me conclude by saying, I believed that the worst thing that could happen to me was losing my fiancée to my brother 2 years ago. I now see that it served as the wake-up call I needed to escape a dysfunctional family structure. Your lowest point can occasionally serve as the starting point for a better existence. My last update will be this one. I believe I made the proper decision for myself and my nephew, regardless of what occurs next. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, Please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.